Depression is a tricky thing. I was self-medicated, felt alone, in massive debt, and it broke me. At that time, I knew an intervention was needed, and I decided to leave the shop in the hands of the best crew on earth, and I took off for a week with my cousin on what would be my first real adventure motorcycle trip. Labor Day weekend 2010, and still no blue skies ahead. As I mentioned in the last video, I made the fateful decision to open a bike shop during the heart of the Great Recession, and it was paying off just about as good as it sounds. The year had been abysmal, and this was my last chance at a big year-correcting weekend, and nothing was cooperating. Everyone involved was frustrated. What do you think, Rex? Yeah, I totally agree. The universe apparently had it in for me, and I now knew things are going to be bad for a while. Add insult to injury, this is what I saw when I got home. The freak summer snowstorm knocked down one tree. Yeah, obviously the gods had it in for me. I ducked under the tree and casually ignored it as best I could. I'll deal with that later. Right now, I just need to get away and sort my thoughts. I went to my little makeshift shop where I could pretend all was right in the world. Feeling like the true winner I currently was, I gave the day the blue ribbon it deserved and tried to push all the current thoughts out of my head because none were good. This little shop was my sanctuary. Just a Harbor Freight car tent on a wood foundation, but it gave me the ability to hang out and tinker. Without it, I was at the mercy of all the elements, and there were a lot of elements to consider. My little cabin is near the crest of the Cascade Mountains, and the weather here can be extreme at times, especially in the winter. That's a full-size 1969 Ford pickup right there, and that's the same truck a few days later. I've had over 7 feet of snow on the ground at once. About 3 feet more than in these pictures. I was even able to literally walk onto the roof from the ground. There was that much snow. Got to stay on top of it around here, or you're stuck for the winter, with only unwelcome guests as company. It was good to have a place out of the weather, a place to reflect. After having one of the worst days ever, I was at a low point. In shock and in absolute amazement more than anything else. I felt my future might be a dark one indeed, and I didn't like the road I was looking at. It seems crazy to look back at now, but it was this exact moment I came across a show that totally changed everything, or at least planted the seeds. It was called Long Way Round with Charlie Borman and Ewan McGregor, and I was mesmerized. They rode their motorcycles around the world, and I just stood back watching their adventures, which they were able to film, and it got me thinking. I have so much here in Oregon, why couldn't I do something similar for a shorter amount of time? The idea rang like a bell in my head. I love maps, and for fun, I would plan cool routes to visit for some future I wasn't sure would ever come. Maybe the bike was the way to do these after all. That show at least got me thinking about something other than my life's problems. Maybe there was a possibility in my future to explore like I always wanted to explore. The big question, was I in good enough shape to tackle a trip like I wanted? Being a stressed out business owner hadn't done me a whole lot of good in the shape department. 10 years ago, it wouldn't have been an issue. We'll have to see where I'm at physically, and a mountain bike trip will quickly tell the tale. Swede Ridge Shelter.
Swede Ridge. Mark another one off the bucket list.
Yeah. Made it back to Swede Ridge.
Right, Swede Ridge. Kim dragged us up this hill that was like climbing a ladder on your bike. But it was fun. Felt pretty good. Yeah. Having problems breathing.
Tolerable.
It's different kind of breathing. It's noticeable. Yeah. Right up there, and close and personal, and shaky vision.
That's good.
10 years earlier and 25 pounds lighter, shape wasn't an issue. I rode every day.
Look out!
It's what we did.
Okay.
It defined who we were and where we were going in life. The late 90s and early 2000s were great for that, at least for me. Carefree and lighter both mentally and physically, with purpose only the culture would understand. It was a fantastic time. Fast forward 10 years and I haven't ridden a bike in about 6, which is ironic being a bike shop owner, using too much work as the excuse. Nowadays, it was more stops than before and much slower on the trail than I'd like to admit. I was rusty, and it was obvious. Luckily, this wasn't going to be a mountain bike trip. I definitely wasn't GoPro worthy anymore. Denied. I thought the only other person I would want to tag along for the ride was my cousin Josh. Problem was, we hadn't ridden together in a long time, and he currently didn't even have a bike. Luckily, he was as enthusiastic about the idea as I was, and I was quickly able to find him an old XR600 that my friend had just recently completely rebuilt mechanically. She wasn't the prettiest I'd ever seen, but she was perfect for the trip. I talked him into selling it to Josh, and we got it for an absolute steal. Way back in 2003, I wanted to start camping off of the bike, so I designed a luggage system that strapped onto the bike without any modifications to the bike itself. It was made out of 2 Army surplus backpacks, zip-tied together with my sleeping bag stuffed between the 2. It had worked great for the last 7 years, but I would definitely need something more robust for a trip like we were planning. Luckily, this was now a thing, and Giantloop was in town. Harold was a friend and actually my neighbor, and Dave was a buddy as well. His son Lucas worked for me at the shop. They hooked us up on a great deal on new bags for the trip, and we were set. They sure looked the part, but how do they perform? I was excited to find out, so I loaded up and took off from the cabin and started exploring. They felt great. This was the game changer I had been looking for, and I was once again excited about what the future held. I immediately planned a quick overnight trip and started the process of loading up and preparing for real. I even put that new tire on I've been sitting on for the last couple years, and I got ready to head out on the test trip that would let me know if this future was even a possibility. As I've mentioned before, a part of me has always thought of my bike as a horse, and I always wanted it to take me to far distant places. I've always had an old soul when it came to that type of travel, and this felt like it could be the 21st century equivalent. We're off. And the bike feels great. I was astounded at the performance. The last thing to check off the list is how does it feel on single track? It feels great. All initial tests passed with flying colors. One of my favorite routes at the time was to ride the old Powerline Road, basically from town all the way up to Mount Bachelor. This would be a good test for all of my equipment. If it could do this, I would be confident it would do most anything I would throw at it. Once again, the bike surpassed my wildest hopes and dreams. It seemed as happy as I was, we were finally able to embark on the types of adventures we both wanted to be on. I was also equally impressed with my pre-production second-generation GoPro Hero my buddy Jamo hooked me up with. He was something like GoPro's 17th or 32nd employee, a pretty low number regardless. And he made my recording of this trip possible. Maybe by today's standards, this isn't the greatest footage, but back in 2010, it was magical. Let's get on the road and find camp. We'll be chasing the sun from here on out. I found the perfect spot at one of my favorite places in the world, and I couldn't believe it. I was here, and I rode here. Plus, if I wanted to, I could just keep riding. I had everything I needed to just keep going. That sense of freedom was what I needed to start to push out the darkness in my mind that I'd been carrying as of late, and I once again found myself beginning to fall in love with possibilities. I could see a whole new world before me as I was looking at this place with new eyes. It had always been special to me, but now I could actually see it for the first time in a very long time. I settled in for the night, and all of a sudden I realized, this is it. This is what I want to do. The freedom I always thought was out there was actually out there to be had, and it finally was right there in front of me. I called Josh and confirmed the trip for me was a go. Jamo was able to set us up with one more GoPro, so we would both have one on the trip. Josh told me he already got his new bags mounted and was able to get some new gear as well. He was now as ready as I was. It was time to get on these bikes and set out on an adventure neither of us would ever forget.